What's up everybody, this is Ty with this week's Wander. Today we have a little different video than we usually do. Today we have Taylor's GX470. One of the CV boots is torn, so we decided we're just gonna replace the whole axle. So what we're gonna do, I'll go through all the tools and the parts that we need, and then we're gonna walk you through on how to do it. All right, so the tools that you're gonna need, first of all, you're gonna need a garage or a driveway. Today we're in the apartment complex parking garage. Not ideal, but gotta use what you got, right? So, and as far as tools, you're gonna need a jack. We're using the OEM ball jack. Then you're gonna need a lug wrench for your wheels, obviously. You're gonna need a mallet or a hammer, preferably like a rubber mallet. Screwdriver or something with a thin edge to pop off the dust cover on there. Then we're gonna need some kind of pliers. You're gonna need a 36mm socket to fit over the axle nut. Then a breaker bar or some kind of pipe to put over your wrench. You need a 12, a 14, and a 17mm socket. You're gonna need a pry bar, jack stand, light, like an oil pan or something, or some kind of towels to get the excess oil that comes out. That's all the tools you need. Parts, obviously you need an axle, or if you're just doing the CV boot, just buy a boot kit. So let's get started. This is all 101 stuff, but I'm sure some viewers don't have too much knowledge about this, so pop these. We're gonna put the bottle jack under the lower control arm, kind of where the ball joint is. I'll get a zoomed in picture of the placement, but I found this to be the best area when using the bottle jack. The tire up off the ground and then continue to remove the tire. Doesn't need to be that high off, maybe like an inch or so. And then we're gonna put a jack stand under the frame. So. We're gonna lift it a little higher. All right, so we have the jack stand under the frame. We have the bottle jack under the lower control arm. So next step, I'm gonna pull all these lugs off, pull the tire, and then we'll let the suspension down so it sits on the frame, on the jack stand, and then we'll go from there. All right, so we're gonna proceed to remove the tire, and then we are running wheel spacers on here, so we might need to take those off to access the dust cap, but we'll see. All right, so on this one, we have to remove the wheel spacers to access that dust cap. So. Do they look at you funny or something?
Yeah.
Were you flirting with them?
A little bit. I'm just not good at it.
Well, since we're here, you can see what we did for suspension on this. We ran Tacoma front struts with a spacer on the top hat. Nothing special, nothing pretty, but it gets the job done for what we're gonna do. Just some mild wheeling, so. It's a good budget alternative to some of the high-end lift kits. So we got the wheel spacer off. We'll set all these aside. So the next step is to remove this dust cap. To grab my screwdriver from the car.
As you can see here, this is a 4Runner. It is like a GX, but it is a 4Runner.
It shares the same bloodline as the GX470. It's just a little sexier.
A little slimmer.
All right, so to get this dust cap off, what I found is using a flathead screwdriver and a little hammer or mallet. You go around the top of it. You just kind of tap it in a few spots. Usually it's rusted on there or it's just stuck. So you just kind of break it loose. Go around it as much as you need to. And then a little trick to prying it out is turning the screwdriver side. So there we go, dust cover's off. It exposes the axle nut there. So. Next step, take your big effing hammer, you just give it a little love tap. That way you don't spend an hour trying to pull it from the other side. There you go. Straight as an arrow.
Nope.
Then you pull this off. I don't know what that's called.
It's the carburetor.
Then you get your adapter, because I don't have big boy tools. Okay, sometimes when you're a poor college kid, you have to use your jack handle as a breaker bar. So you just pull that off your own vehicle and come over to your friend's vehicle to use it on. And the key too is using gravity instead of pure strength.
Which was not an option.
Yeah. So you stick that on there.
It's loud.
I think I just broke my ratchet.
Okay, so what's happening?
All right, so I broke my ratchet because I was using it with a breaker bar, and it's not ideal. So we're going to AutoZone to either buy a breaker bar or loan one out to hopefully get the job done. All right, everybody. We're back from the only O'Reilly's close by that's open until 11. It's basically midnight right now. So we got a adjustable breaker bar and a 6.36 millimeter instead of the 12 point. We're hoping it'll work a little better. So we'll see how it goes. That's really on there. Got it loose. So we got the axle nut off. Next, we're gonna undo the bolts for the ball joint, lower ball joint.
Hey everybody, this is Ty back at it again with another video. We're going to take a video today of me replacing the axle.
So here's the lower ball joint. There's 2 bolts on each side. It takes the whole assembly apart, so you don't have to mess with the ball joint itself. So undo these, they're torqued on pretty good, so we might use the breaker bar. So we got the 2 lower ball joint bolts off for the assembly. Next we're gonna take the outer tie rod off. So a little trick to get the outer tie rod off. You get your hammer. You gotta be really careful of these threads up here. So I leave this nut on, and then you're gonna hit right here, and that should pop it loose. Pop that all the way loose. Now, as you can see, we've got full movement right here. So next step, we're gonna put this nut back on just to protect the threads. And give it a few taps. And then there's actually a little center punch hole, I guess you would call it. You can use a screwdriver or something. Stick it in there. Pop it out. So now it's loose. So next step, I like to separate the axle from the hub. So you kind of pull it out like that. Set the whole assembly to the side. Now you have kind of a straight shot at this. Next step, take a crowbar. This is where things get kind of messy, but if you do it right, I think we need some tops.
Okay.
All right, so it took 2 hands. That's why we weren't recording too much. But what we ended up doing was sticking the pry bar up through the skid plate. There's a big hole, and then we used the hammer, pounded it out. So that's a lot better than trying to wiggle it free. So we got it loose. Now the next step is cleaning some things off and installing the new axle. All right, so we're gonna stick the new axle in. This nice, pretty axle. This one we sourced from a guy who had this for his Tacoma. So, as you can see here, obviously that's going to be the front because that's where the axle nut is. You can tell that this is the rear because it's usually larger. So we pull these protective covers off. We can leave that one on for now. So the trick with this, sometimes people have a hard time setting these axle splines in, and it's because of this clip. When you try and stick it in there, the clip hangs down and it gets caught on the outside of the splines. So what I do is I put some grease in there to help hold the clip in. Stick it on there. Helps to kind of lubricate it. Keeps it from hanging down. Now it's not flopping around. Okay. Next step, we're gonna position this. We have a rag in there to stop the gear oil from coming out, just to save some oil. So we're gonna do a little magic act. Get this close in there. Line it up somewhat straight. You have to move this out of the way a little. All right, that is fully seated in there. Pull this nut off. Now we just pull this assembly out and line up the splines again. All right, so we had to lower the lower control arm a little bit to fit it in. Got it lined up, slides right in. We'll put the nut back on, and then from this point, it's just putting everything back together. So we'll start with the lower ball joint bolts, get those put in, then we'll tighten this up, put the cotter pin back in, then we're gonna put the outer tie rod back in, make sure everything's tightened up, put the wheel spacer on, and I think we're good to go after that. So here we go.